thanks for tuning into this week's Stacker Chat. Stacks is smart contracts for Bitcoin, and I'm joined by Muneeb Ali, Stacks founder, for your weekly updates. Now, Russia and Ukraine are in the throes of war right now in a global crisis. Can you unpack for us how you see Bitcoin as a strength for citizens in both war times and in peace? And speak a bit further about how Bitcoin can be leveraged for good.
Yeah, so I think I had a tweet about this, that the sad thing about Bitcoin is that people realize the importance of Bitcoin in times of conflict more than times of peace, right? And that's just something where it's a little bit like, if you tell somebody that, hey, look, your money is not really safe in banks, they will look at you a little bit strange, like, hey, what are you talking about? I've been using banks for like such a long time. Until there's a day when your assets are being seized in your bank and you're shocked, right? Or similarly, if you live in a country like Lebanon or something, where suddenly the value of your local currency just drastically dropped, and there are bank runs and people are suffering, and then they suddenly realize that, oh, something like Bitcoin that is open source technology, it's a decentralized network. No one can take away your money from you in a network like that, both in the sense of like actually confiscating it, and also in the sense of if you need to travel with your money, like, this is like way better than gold even. Like, you can't like travel with a lot of gold on you, but you can with just a hardware wallet, or just like, remembering your private key just in your brain and so on. But also, like, in terms of if there is a financial crisis in the world, like, I don't think Bitcoin is still an early technology. I don't think Bitcoin is fully there yet, where people, like in terms of a financial crisis, people would flock to Bitcoin. But I think we're kind of already getting there, even though these are early days for Bitcoin. We're kind of already seeing some of that happen. But in the long term, Bitcoin is designed to be the asset that would be the safest thing to hold if there is a financial crisis going on in the world. So I think from that lens, it's a little bit like whenever there's a war-like scenario, suddenly more people do wake up to the potential of Bitcoin. It's kind of like sad to see that, right? Like, because on one side, you're kind of like feeling that, hey, it's really tragic that this thing is happening. But on the other side, you've been working on this technology for such a long time, and finally you see that other people are waking up to why this is important, right? And one thing that I think people should keep in mind is Bitcoin is neutral. Like, it's a little bit like anyone can use it, and like criminals can use it if they want to. Like, there are pros and cons to it, like, because the ledger is public, people can track things. And similarly, like in a war-like scenario, it can be used for giving donations to the side that you think needs more help, or there are more kind of like tragedies happening and people are losing their lives. But also, like, it can be used by the other side as well, right? So Bitcoin is neutral. Anyone can use this network, and this is a fairly fundamental tension that a lot of people face. Like, we have seen similar arguments with the internet as well. Like, the internet is as neutral as possible. I think Bitcoin is actually more neutral. And then similarly, anyone can use the internet. Like, criminals can use the internet, but you don't ban the internet usage because bad people might use it. You have this fundamental belief that there are more good people on the planet than bad people, right? And you want to enable free, open technologies, because in the end, the total benefit to society is usually always much bigger, because you have this fundamental belief that there are a lot more good people on the planet than there are criminals or people who might use the technology for bad reasons.
All right, thank you. And can you speak a bit further on this concept of self-sovereignty for states and sort of the benefits of countries building a position in Bitcoin reserves?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, right? If you go back to even earlier times, it was extremely important to any sovereign state to have their own gold reserves, right? They would, like, in some ways, the worth of a sovereign nation was valued in how much wealth they had, and wealth mostly in gold and other types of like hard assets that they had, right? And I think this is a little bit like the modern financial system is relatively very new to humans and society. Right? Like for most of our time, we've measured wealth in like very tangible things, like how much of a natural resources do you have, or how much gold do you have, and so on. And even today, right? Like if you look at the price of commodities, like with the war, the price of oil is shooting up, right? Or the price of wheat is shooting up. These are commodities. These are kind of like physical things that you can own, right? Whereas the modern financial system is all digital, right? It's just like entries on a ledger somewhere. And in times of crisis, like people can back out of their obligations and contracts or debts and whatnot, right? So those numbers actually mean less than hard assets. And Bitcoin is effectively kind of like the best hard asset that you can think of, right? It has all the good parts of a digital asset, right? And at the same time, it is scarce and it's limited, and it's neutral. Everyone on the planet, just like an open source neutral technology, that can agree that there are only 21 million Bitcoin. This is how the protocol works, and it's a scarce asset. So in that sense, if you look at the politics or dynamics between different nations, any nation that kind of like really cares about their sovereignty would start building positions in Bitcoin, right? I think this is early days, and these types of statements might sound crazy, right? But if you roll back time to early 2011 or 2013 or something like that, some of the stuff that Bitcoin people were saying has already happened. There's already a country out there where Bitcoin is legal tender. You could have never imagined that in the early days of Bitcoin. Similarly, today, if you're saying that nation states would almost, like if you follow the game theory, they would be compelled to start building Bitcoin positions, just like it was important for them to have gold, or just like it's important for them to have reserve assets for the US dollar, because it's the reserve currency. And almost like so many of these countries, including Pakistan, where I grew up, like they need to keep like USD on their balance sheet just to be a part of the global economy. And I think as the landscape is shifting, it will become very important to actually have Bitcoin positions to maintain sovereignty in a new financial world.
Like these videos, subscribe, and let us know what questions you have in the comments or on Twitter. And thank you.